What is my January 2023 bullet journal theme? Let's find out. Hey y'all, welcome back to Dots and Beyond. My name is Beth, and today we're setting up my bullet journal for January of 2023. If you missed the setup video where I introduced you to this journal for 2023, which I have named Chester after Chester Bennington, the link to the entire Planmas series is in the description box below. Now, I used some pre-printed rock tickets for this setup, and I had a lot of those left over, and when last we met I told you I had found a solution for that, and this is where I have overlapped and just made a collage of those leftover tickets in the back of my journal. If you are new to Dots and Beyond, I like to have a year-long theme running throughout my bullet journals. In 2021, that was my Fierce Fictional Female series. Here in 2022, I have been celebrating festivals and celebrations from around the world. And the theme for 2023 is music and lyrics, which I am personally very excited about. But that is also a very broad topic, so how do we narrow it down as to what I'm going to do each month? And my solution to this is to tap into my Spotify playlists. I have almost 200 public playlists on Spotify, and they each have their own cover art, and most of them have a pretty particular vibe. But 200 is still a lot to choose from. Here at the top of my Spotify playlist, I do have those that I'm listening to on a regular basis, and then they kick in alphabetically and go from there. As you can see, each playlist cover has its own mood and feeling, as well as its own color palette. These are elements that are going to help me eliminate that analysis paralysis that we get hung up on when trying to pick a theme from month to month. And while I have already decided on some of my monthly themes, the others I am going to have y'all pick for me. Scrolling through these playlists really is a weird peek into my psyche, but as we get down here to the bottom and the alphabetical list runs out, we begin to run into my fandom playlists. I have Harry Potter playlists, Doctor Who playlists, a lot of sci-fi and fantasy playlists. And then my favorite to do every year are my Halloween playlists. I will link to my Spotify in the description box below. For now, let's talk about some supplies. Y'all, I am trying to keep my setups for 2023 a little simpler than I have in the past, or a lot simpler than I have in the past. So we just have a few pens here. I have a very light gray, a cool gray, as well as a black Pigmamicron. I have a couple of Ohuhu markers here that are in the same color palette. I chose this blue to sort of match the blue in that small square picture in the top right corner. And then I also have a Shuttle Art dot marker in the same color vibes. This very light, cool gray Pigmamicron I've used in a couple of videos now. I have already put in all of the straight lines that I have in this setup, so you guys don't need to watch me ruler straight lines. For that, I have used this light, cool gray, and sometimes it looks like a pencil sketch, but it's actually permanent. The playlist that I have chosen for January 2023 is titled Atlantis Fallen. It is essentially my global warming, post-apocalyptic survival playlist. Isn't that just the cheeriest of ways to start off 2023? But this setup is not going to be very complicated at all. It really is just very thin line work as well as a tiny bit of color. To do that line work, I'm going to use a 0.01 Pigmamicron. It's a very, very thin nib micron. It is archival ink, so once it sets and I decide to color some of the areas with the watercolor markers I'll be using, they're not going to smudge and bleed the black ink across the paper. To begin, I'm outlining a cursive J, and I have designed this J with some flourishes. On the end of those flourishes is a little barb or spike to mimic that of a stingray tail, because I am going to sketch a ray on this page as well. As the theme is Atlantis Fallen, I do need to get in some Atlantean vibes. To do that, I am drawing some ruins at the bottom of my pages along with some other little sea bits and bobs, just to indicate that this is a civilization possibly at the bottom of the ocean without painting an entire ocean setup. I also had reference material because, again, I am not a great artist from scratch. So to find these items, I looked for ruins or ancient ruins plus line drawing. I did not want to find anything or have any search results that were in full color or had a lot of things going on in the drawing. I really just wanted some simple drawings that I could recreate in this journal. I have alluded to it in videos leading up to this one, but I'm going to elaborate because we have a lot of welcome new viewers. I am stripping back my style from 21 and 22 and really paring it back down to ink and maybe a few markers instead of paints and some really over elaborate colored setups. I love looking at them, they're beautiful. I definitely love watching other people's videos with really elaborate paintings in them, but for 2023, that's just not for me. I'm also keeping with my normal print and my normal cursive for the most part. And that leads me to the first quote in this journal, which is a song lyric, of course, because our theme is music and lyrics. Am I brave enough? Am I strong enough to follow the desire that burns from within? This is from I Am the Fire by Hellstorm. For when I want to write in color, I am using that Ohuhu marker that is just slightly darker than the other. It is shade number 100. And then for coloring in some of this seaweed and just some leaves here and there, I am using number 90 of the Ohuhu markers. As I was coloring, I realized I was missing a few little lines here and there, and so I touched those up again with the same 0.01 Pigma Micron. That wraps up this 2023 cover page in this new style with just the ink and a little bit of marker and lots of white space still on the page. Next up is my calendar spread. I am going with a full grid calendar layout again, which is very unusual for me. As stated, I already used this light cool gray to put in my calendar grid, so it does look like it's part of a pencil sketch, but it is meant to be that light. When I do a grid style calendar, I do need as much space to work with as possible, so each one of these squares is 6 by 6 dot grid spaces. While I sketch in my ruins and sea creatures, let's talk a little bit about the 2 rules that I have for this music and lyrics year. My first rule is that any playlist I use must already exist by December 31st of 2022. I can't be making myself a playlist just to match a theme. The second is that I cannot use a playlist that I created specifically to go with a previous bullet journal theme. That will rule out any of those themes that I created with my Fierce Fictional Female Challenge, like my Atomic Blonde playlist, or my Tenarius playlist, or even my Lara Croft playlist. Stick around to the end of the video and you can help me pick my March playlist. It's time for another lyric, this one from Paradise is Lost by Goldtop. We built an empire we thought was never ending. We tried to stop the fire, now there is no pretending. Beauty to dust, paradise is lost, paradise is lost. Originally, I intended to highlight the top of every week with the lighter color of the teal, but decided that was going to be too dark and too much teal on the page, so I did bring in the Tombow N95 for this purpose and add it to the supplies, just to have a little bit of color on the top of each week. After touching up bits of my sketch here and there, adding a few lines to the column, I decided that with the gray header, I would use the teal color to write in the days of the week and still have a little bit of that teal on the top of each day. And the final touch will be to add some of that same teal color to our seaweed and our wrapping leaves. Again, this is all just to tie everything in and make it look cohesive. And that is the calendar page for 2023 in the Atlantis Fallen theme. We will have to see if I jive with using the full grid calendar. The next spread is going to be a wellness spread, and I'm going to set this up to track some things in a very simple chart. Placing that chart in the top right 2/3 of the spread gave me some room here on the left where I can sketch in a vertically shaped ruin. And then I have a lot of space on the bottom to flush out the sea floor, this time with some coral as well as a dolphin. I also used some reference photos for the sea creatures and the coral and the seaweed. I just googled coral seaweed doodles or sea creature doodles and then picked some of the ones that I felt like would work best. For my wellness chart, I did things a little bit differently. I do have the days of the week through the middle of the page, and then I left a space between each one of the weeks. So you'll see the 1 for December 1st stands by itself because it's on Sunday, and then there's 1 dot grid space separating each of the weeks after that. The items on the top half I'm going to track on a scale of 1 to 10, but I didn't want to write in 1 to 10. So I am going to use that light cool gray again to put in some dotted lines on the 1 line, the 5 line, and the 10 line. To do that, I just line up the centimeter side with the ruler and then put a tiny little dash in between each centimeter. It's just a very light visual cue for the eye to follow. In the top section, I'll be tracking mood, steps, and sleep with a combination of bar graph and line graph. The bottom section will be for tracking my habits. I haven't quite figured out what those are going to be yet. To mark those as complete for the day, I will simply use the dot marker. For now, I just have 1 habits written in here to remind me that I'm going to need to fill those out. To make the top portion more legible, I do have it color coded, so my sleep will be in a bar graph going up and down using a gray, and then I will use a line graph for mood and steps. The mood will be the dark gray over top, and the steps will be the teal. This next spread is going to be my projects page. It's really just going to be a very simple listorama. There's going to be a number of lists on this page. This idea is really just a more designed idea from what I call the big list in my monthly setup for my work journal. More on that tomorrow if you want to see what the big list is going to look like. For the thematic elements on this one, I am just sketching in a triple arch ruin, and this time I plopped an octopus on top of it. Again, this is just going to be a page of lists, so for those list headers I have chosen to outline those in the teal, and because I have all of the teal headers, I only put a tiny bit of that teal color down on the artwork. And those headers are Dots and Beyond, blog, home, freelance, side quests, and monthly to-do. Side quests being those things that come along and hijack my month. I left space for me to write on every other line, and so each one of those has a teal bullet point as well as a small gray outline. It's super simple but effective when you think to yourself, what do I need to do this month? And that is it for my project page, and that will set us up for my weekly and daily logging, and this is where I'm really stepping into sort of an experimental zone for January. On the left side of this spread, I'm going to set up some weekly routines for myself, and I'm taking a little bit of a cue from the Fly Lady system, but I've sort of just made things my own. On this left side, I have a list of 2 or 3 things that I want to clean or do every single day. One of those is kitchen. The kitchen is sort of the bane of my existence. Next to that, I'm going to give myself a zone every week, and I've set up my own zones. For week 2, this is going to be zone 1, which is my entry, porch, and back patio. Below that, I have sketched in some morning and evening routines. I'm learning that I'm never going to be much of a routine person, specifically a morning routine person, and I found out recently from my therapist that those sorts of morning routines are pretty much set by what we learn in childhood. Not that my parents didn't very much have morning routines, particularly my mother, who was a farm girl growing up, but I went to boarding school from 7th through 12th grade and got into the habit of literally just falling out of bed and going to class. It has been many a year since I graduated from high school, but I still fall out of bed and go to work. This was an aha moment for sure. And that revelation came after I had set up this journal, so I do have a morning routine in here. It is something for me to aspire to, even if I never quite get there. To give the page a little more interest, I am varying between the teal color, a black Pigmamicron, and a gray Pigmamicron. In particular, down in the routines, I wrote the AM routine with that teal color and the PM routine with the gray. I do still like a mini calendar to refer to throughout the month, so I've put in my mini calendar for January here, and then I will start my daily logging right below this. And for the art on the page, you can see I just drew myself a little sunken ship. I may or may not choose to do any doodles on the subsequent weeks, but this starts me off with a little bit of one. That will be it for the first week. I have left myself enough space to do my dailies here and then use a whole nother spread for the rest of the week, and the first 3 columns being the rest of those dailies, and then doing a weekly reset in this 4th column. I've been experimenting with free flow daily logging over November and December, and hopefully this is enough room, and then I have left myself enough pages to do the subsequent weeks before we flip over to the final spread for this setup. We are going to keep this super simple, and like the previous pages, I have already pre-ruled our straight lines. The left side of the spread is a playlist, and I was going to go ahead and put some of the songs from Atlantis Fallen on this playlist. But then I realized it would be a whole lot more fun if I got recommendations from y'all to put on this playlist to match my Atlantis Fallen playlist. So today in the comments, I'm asking you to leave me any type of sea creature emoji along with a song recommendation, something that falls into the apocalyptic vibes. It could just be interpreted as an apocalyptic song. It doesn't necessarily have to be literal. The right side of this spread is being left very simple, my friends. I am going to use the left column for review and the right column for a monthly reset. I might add some headers or bullet points later, but January's far away and we'll deal with that when the time comes. And now it's time for me to use this little sticker for my Atlantis Fallen playlist and put it here with my themes for the next 6 months. Editing Beth here, and I'm going to need your help picking a theme for March. I already have my January theme, and I've already picked my February theme because I do like to start working on things a little earlier, but I am going to need some help for March, so we are going to set up a little poll on the community tab to help me figure out what to do with this month. To figure out which playlists to put on the poll was really a mood-driven decision. I picked 3 for you to choose from. First up is my Storm playlist titled Vital Statistics. Vital Statistics being a character from the Asterix comics who's always afraid he's going to get hit by lightning. Next up is Oh the Places You'll Go, a travel playlist. And for you fellow 80s kids, we have Retro Roller Rink. They'll all be linked in the description box below. You certainly don't have to listen to them, you can absolutely vote based on those pictures and my descriptors alone. I am also taking suggestions for the rest of the year, so if you want to peruse my playlists and toss up an idea for something you'd like to see, leave that in the comments below as well. And now it's time for the January 2023 flip through. Y'all, I have been wanting to simplify my bullet journal setups for a few months now, and I love the way that this one has turned out, so I hope you are enjoying the minimal vibes as much as I am. Who knows if this will last? By the time I get to August, I might be splashing color all over the page again. Let this serve as a reminder that your bullet journal is your bullet journal. You can keep it as stripped back and minimal as you would like my work journal that is very much like the original bullet journal system, or you can bust out some paints and create an entire mosaic. In this current season of life for me, that means still having a creative bullet journal, but not taking 5 or 6 hours to make it happen. Aside from sketch time, this took me just over an hour. Don't forget to leave me a song recommendation in the description box below along with your sea creature emoji. While you're down in that section, you know what to do next. Give this video a big thumbs up if you liked it, subscribe if you haven't already, and I will catch you in the next one.